My family never really cared about what I did. Instead, they only paid attention to Jason, who was always praised for his outstanding work. The feeling of being left out became more and more obvious. I felt like I was nothing more than an outsider in my own family. I am Lily Thompson, the only daughter of the Thompson family, a prominent family in the New York food industry. My father, David Thompson, founded and ran the family's large food company, while my mother, Helen Thompson, was responsible for marketing and promoting the company's products. All eyes in the family were on my younger brother, Jason, who was considered the golden boy, and was being groomed to take over the company in the future. Although I was a hard worker and always tried to achieve excellence in my work, I always felt overlooked. Despite my important contributions to the company, my parents always paid attention and favored Jason. Whenever I proposed new ideas or plans for the company, I did not receive recognition, and even important decisions were often overlooked simply because I was a girl. Despite my relentless efforts, from studying to personal projects, I still could not gain a worthy position in the eyes of my family. Every day, I had to prove myself more and more, but no matter how hard I tried, I still felt like I was just an extra in my family, never recognized. This made me feel disappointed, but I decided not to give up and started thinking about ways to prove my worth without depending on my family's recognition. After years of being ignored and unacknowledged in my family, I decided that I could no longer live in the shadow of my parents and younger brother. I could no longer sit back and watch them decide everything in the family business, when I had new, creative ideas and even had outstanding abilities. But every time I proposed a plan, no matter how promising, I was ignored. My younger brother, Jason, despite his lack of interest in the company, was always considered the successor, and my parents continued to support him, regardless of my contributions. However, everything began to change when an unexpected incident occurred. One morning, my father was suddenly diagnosed with a serious illness and could no longer run the company. The whole family was thrown into chaos. Jason, who had always been groomed as the successor, suddenly announced that he did not want to take over the company, saying that he wanted to pursue his passion for art. This left everyone in the family in a state of panic. The company was in dire straits without a leader in time. There were tense meetings, and while everyone was still looking for a solution, I realized this was my chance. I used to think that my family would never accept me, but now that the company was facing a crisis, I knew I might be the only one who could save the situation. With my deep understanding of the industry, I decided to take over the company, despite not having the support of my parents. It was a risky decision, but I was no longer afraid. I called a meeting with all the directors and key employees in the company, deciding to outline a bold plan to revive the business. Things were not easy. I faced opposition from my mother, who could not accept my taking over the company. She did not believe that I could do it, and constantly urged me to hand over the company to Jason. She even threatened to withdraw all my investment if I continued with this plan. Her words were like knives to my heart, but I could not back down. I knew that if I did nothing, the company would go bankrupt, and I would not let that happen. With the support of a few strategic partners I had brought in, I decided to make big changes. We started improving our production processes, improving product quality, and restructuring our departments. My team and I stepped up our marketing strategy and focused on international markets. Things were tense and challenging. Meetings were non-stop, important decisions had to be made every day, and I could feel the tension in the air. Every day was a battle to maintain my position and keep the company from collapsing. A week later, In an emergency meeting with major partners, I convinced them to invest in the company's restructuring project. This project would help the company not only overcome the crisis but also expand into the global market. As things started to get going, I felt the change. Loyal employees began to trust me more, and customers started to come back. However, even though the company was gradually stabilizing, I knew that I still had to deal with my mother and Jason, who still did not accept me as the leader. The tension in the family became more and more obvious. One day, while I was working in the office, my mother walked in with a displeased look on her face. Without saying a word, she bluntly asked me to resign and leave the company to Jason. Although she had great power in the company, I knew that I could not give in. "Mom, I'm not leaving. This is the family business, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep it." She looked at me in disbelief, but I didn't back down. I knew that if I didn't, I would never prove my worth to my family. In the end, after many tense negotiations and gradual changes in the company, I succeeded. The family business not only survived the crisis but also thrived under my leadership. My mother, although still hesitant, finally acknowledged the change I had brought. This recognition, although slow, was the first step to making me feel that I was no longer an extra in the family. That despite the initial lack of support, I could still change and lead the family business further. After facing strong opposition from my family and major challenges in the company, I decided that I could not back down. Although the company was on the verge of collapse and my family had not yet recognized my leadership ability, I knew that I had to do something big to save the company and prove my worth. Only when faced with adversity and challenges, I began to outline a bold strategy to restructure the family company. Everyone in the company was surprised when I announced that I would take over and make major changes. First, I invited consultants and strategic partners to assess the actual situation of the company. After reviewing the entire production process, marketing strategy, and financial management, I decided to make a comprehensive reform. I was not afraid to face opposition from my family members, especially my mother, who always thought that I was not capable of leading the company. The following months were filled with tense meetings and tough decisions. I was forced to face the lack of trust from my mother and the directors of the company. However, I did not allow myself to be affected. I set about improving the quality of my products, applying new technologies to the production process, and improving the efficiency of my staff. I focused on rebuilding the trust of customers and partners by improving my marketing strategy and developing new products that met market needs. Although I could feel the tension in my family, when my mother looked at me with suspicion, I never let it discourage me. I knew that this change was not easy, but I believed in my vision and my abilities. I gradually began to attract the attention of investors, who had previously considered me a shadow in the company. Meetings and negotiations with business partners became smoother as they began to see a clear change in the company. After a short time, results began to appear. The family business's revenue began to grow, and customers who had previously turned their backs on us began to return. Seeing this change, I felt more confident than ever. But there was one moment that I will never forget, which was when our company won the Excellent Brand in the Food Industry award at a national awards ceremony. That moment was a recognition not only for the company but also for my tireless efforts. When I received the award, in the crowd, I saw my mother's eyes. At first, she just stood still, but then, I saw a slight change in her expression. She didn't say anything, but her eyes said it all. It was a moment that I will never forget. I didn't need her praise or recognition, but the fact that the family business was thriving, that miraculous recovery, made me feel that I had done the right thing. I was no longer the outcast in the family. However, I was still not completely at ease, because I knew that my family's acceptance was not yet complete. The day after receiving the award, my mother called me to the office and said that we needed to have a talk. I knew this conversation would not be easy, but I still decided to face it. She started talking about the difficulties in the process of restructuring the company and admitted that she was wrong to not believe in my ability. Facing my mother, I felt an indescribable relief. She finally realized that I was capable of leading the company and no longer thought of me as just an incompetent daughter. With the obvious changes in the company, I no longer felt like an outsider. The company not only recovered but also thrived, and I proved that I could lead and take the company to the next level. What mattered was not the recognition from my family, but that I had built my own success and made a difference for the company. What I had achieved was not just a victory for a company, but a victory for myself, a woman who had overcome all doubts, challenges, and affirmed her worth. The family business is now stronger than ever, and I no longer need recognition from anyone other than myself. Every day I wake up, I know that I have done what everyone thought was impossible. Hi! If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps us a lot and ensures that you don't miss out on more great stories that we will share.